Sonic Frontiers released nearly 1 year ago, give or take a few days. Jeez, how time flies. With its release, we now have 5 3D modern Sonic games which follow the Boost formula, whilst also adding their own gameplay styles and gimmicks. I'm of course referring to Unleashed, Colors, Generations, Forces, and now Frontiers. And that got me thinking, which of these games do I think achieves the best gameplay experience whilst utilising the Boost formula of Sonic? And yes, whilst I will be mentioning the gimmicks that each game has, such as the Werehog or the Avatar stages, the boosting sections will be the main focus of the video. Feel free to subscribe if you like more content like this, and let's get started. Starting with none other than the game that brought this gameplay to the 3D era, Sonic Unleashed. This game has aged incredibly well with its beautiful visuals, blazing fast gameplay, phenomenal soundtrack, and fantastic level design, and playing it on the Series X just makes everything so much better. In fact, just touching on the soundtrack for a second, I think it has the best OST of these 5 games, regardless of the day or night stages. It truly is something special. Coming back to the actual gameplay, I think these levels have also aged incredibly well, given that this was the first attempt at boosting in a 3D environment. Each of the Act 1 day stages are long, well-designed levels that are designed to be replayed and ultimately mastered, the style that I like in my Sonic games. The themes of these levels are also very unique, as the adventure takes Sonic across the different continents in his journey to restore the planet. Unfortunately, that only applies to the Act 1 levels, as the other stages within each location are not nearly to the same standard, being shorter and with significant difficulty spikes. But at the very least they are completely optional, and you can play them to switch it up a bit when grinding the Sun and Moon medals. Touching on the infamous Werehog for a moment, I honestly really like the addition. Even if it is batshit crazy of a concept to turn Sonic into a God of War clone, the combat is reasonably fun and the music is once again pure magic. I just wish the levels weren't so goddamn long, as it really does break the pacing of a game, playing a 5-minute daytime level and then a 20-minute Werehog level. Moving on to the second game, we have Sonic Colors for the Wii, and I guess Colors Ultimate for more recent platforms. For a Wii game, the visuals are actually stunning. Not quite on the level of Unleashed, but that is to be expected as Unleashed was a generation ahead of this game. Nevertheless, great stuff all around. The soundtrack is once again gold, no complaints there. It really doesn't matter which world you're in, the music is just great in these games. Surprisingly, Colors is the only game of the 5 that is only modern Sonic from start to finish, as its gimmick is integrated into the modern levels instead of it being its own gameplay style. Each world has 6 acts, however, once again, only the Act 1 stages are at a great standard, as these are the stages that represent the day stages in Unleashed, or the modern Sonic levels in Generations. They don't have nearly the same level of speed or spectacle, however they more than make up for it with the aesthetics and greater emphasis on exploration this time around. In fact, I would argue that this is the strongest quality of Colors. Once you unlock all the Wisp aliens to use in stages you've already completed, it helps you get the most out of each act, which you'll need to do if you want a half-decent rank at the end of a stage. So whilst the Act 1 stages of each world are once again great, unfortunately the same cannot be said for the other levels within each location, as these acts are very gimmicky, have very generic platforming, or are bite-sized stages that you can complete in less than a minute. Yes, I'm dead serious. The Wisps do thankfully bring out the most that each of these stages has to offer. Whilst I certainly had my favourites, those being Laser, Drill and Hover, each Wisp has something fun to offer at the very least, and definitely make the gameplay more unique. The next game is the fan favourite Sonic Generations, and I won't waste your guys' time here. This is my favourite of the Boost games. You have 9 stages in total, and well, they're just so good. Sonic controls very comparably to his Unleashed counterpart, with more refined controls at the trade-off of not reaching the same speeds as he did in 2008. The levels in this game take the high-speed expansiveness of the Unleashed day stages and injects the exploration elements of Colors into levels from Sonic's past to create a truly unforgettable experience. The stages are shorter than Unleashed, however they more than make up for it for how many routes there are to the goal and how satisfying it is from start to finish. I think the only level that didn't meet the mark was Planet Wisp, however it still looks gorgeous and the music just makes my ears melt once again. Speaking of the soundtrack, they are all modern remakes of the original soundtracks, and without wishing to repeat myself too much, they're just simply fantastic. Although if you don't like the level's music for whatever reason, or you fancy customizing the gameplay, you do have the option to replay stages with music from Sonic's past, or by visiting the skill shop to purchase upgrades for both classic and modern Sonic, such as speeding him up, or by increasing the boost gauge. It offers a wide range of experiences depending on what loadout you bring. The only real sour note to modern Sonic are the missions, and whilst some of them are okay, such as racing a doppelganger to the finish line, others such as the friend missions are just just grind the pacing to a halt and just aren't very fun, the vector singing minigame being the absolute bottom of the barrel. Although these missions are thankfully 100% optional, assuming that you play classic Sonic missions to advance the story. Speaking of classic Sonic, he is great as he was as the Genesis games to me, and whilst the physics aren't completely the same, his spin dash is broken in Generations, which I guess helps make him stand out. He's not as good as he was in Mania, but really, which version of classic Sonic is as good as Mania? Sonic Forces. Oh boy. This game feels like you took colours and made it worse in every aspect, with even worse controls and level design that was scrapped and scraped from the bottom of the barrel. This game only had 3 level designers, with 2 of them having 0 experience making Sonic game level designs, and it really does show. 90 seconds will be all it takes for you to complete pretty much every level that modern Sonic has in this game, and there's not a lot of engaging elements for the player, and the less we say about the Avatar or classic Sonic's gameplay, the better. I honestly couldn't tell you a memorable stage from this game, and if they were memorable, it was for the wrong reasons, and the soundtrack doesn't help this game's case either. Whilst it once again looks beautiful, the music in this game is so damn boring and forgettable. I like the Avatar's music, but that's honestly about it. Now for Sonic Frontiers cyberspace levels, and sadly these levels aren't much better. It's the same Green Hill, Chemical Plant, Sky Sanctuary, city aesthetics the entire way through, which sucks, especially since Sonic Generations exists and I really like those versions of the levels. And if they wanted to go with the narrative that these levels are pulled from Sonic's memories, I wish that they just went all in and brought back all sorts of levels. How fun would it be to have like a Cool Edge level? Or maybe, I don't know, whatever you guys are thinking, you probably have some fantastic ideas. Maybe some mods come to the PC version, who knows. The stages themselves just aren't all that fun compared to the highs that were the previous games and what they had to offer. Partly due to the short, mostly uninteresting level design, but mostly due to Sonic's controls in these stages. Especially since during the open zone, you have a far greater control and speed, and can customize your controls and levels according to your preference, in addition to being able to level Sonic up. However, these upgrades and settings don't make any difference to the cyberspace levels, which is a real shame. Thankfully, these open zones are far better, as exploring the 5 islands feels phenomenal by comparison, almost as fun as the web slinging in Spider-Man PS4. That may be a bit of a hot take, but it's honestly how I feel. It's just a shame that these controls and designs didn't apply to the more traditional cyberspace levels. The boss fights are fantastic, but unfortunately the soundtrack just doesn't meet my expectations with this game. So now let's go back to the question of this video. Which game do I believe to be the peak of boosting modern Sonic, or whatever other description you have for it? Well, it should be pretty obvious that Unleashed and Generations are my favourite, and they are at the very top, as they are phenomenal experiences from start to finish. They have phenomenal graphics, soundtracks, and speed, with very good level design, with Generations only slightly being better in my opinion. Colors is a step backwards in terms of speeds and graphics, as we said. However, it makes up for it by adding a lot of exploration and replayability, and a great gimmick being the Wisps. Frontiers has phenomenal gameplay in the open zone, but the cyberspace levels are honestly just poor across the board, with only a couple of noteworthy exceptions, only narrowly surpassing the literal bottom of the barrel, that being Sonic Forces, as that game just has literally nothing going for it in my opinion. But that's just my take. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear. Feel free to subscribe once again and recommend the content. Like and comment your own opinions, I'd love to read them down below. Thanks guys, and as always, I hope you have a great rest of your day.